Hi guys and welcome to another Whisky Geek review. Today I'm going to be looking at another one of the Game of Thrones series from Diageo. Now this one is the House Tyrell Clynelish Reserve. So Clynelish is a distillery way up north in the Highlands, just past Inverness in a little town called Brora. Owned and operated by Diageo of course. They are primarily focused on the creation of spirit for the Johnnie Walker label of blends. They do however release a single malt age statement, this 14-year-old, and I'll circle back to that one a little bit later and do a bit of a comparison. So Clynelish is a distillery known for a quite heavy textural spirit, oily, waxy, that kind of thing. And this is a quality which is really desirable for blenders, which is why it's used heavily in Johnnie Walker. But it's a great base for them building a blend onto, building all those flavours and tying them together. It makes a very satisfying mouthfeel. And they achieve this by retaining a residue in the low wines receiver. So this is after the first distillation, that container builds up some oils, some residue. And rather than clean it down between every batch, they actually maintain some of it to keep recycling those oils and build that body. So they're typically a relatively subtle, nuanced spirit. The ABV of this one may help to bring those flavours forward, but they can be whiskies that you have to work with and kind of tease the flavours out. Not the kind of thing that you would chase after a heavy whiskey, a peaty whiskey, a sherried whiskey, something that would be better off starting the night. So this whiskey is a no age statement and it's bottled at 51.2% ABV. Let's go in and take a look at the colour. Now I'm putting that one down as about a shade 10 Amontillado. I would put money on that not being natural colour though. Now the nose opens with layers of citrus and it's quite a thick nose if that makes sense. A bit of a prickle, think kind of along the lines of like sherbet, a little bit fuzzy. It kind of settles down on nice dry grass, a little bit floral, and there's some rounded ground spices and a bit of pepper. There's a soft woody note in there, but it's kind of like sawdust, you know, dry rather than wet. And there's a hidden sweetness, kind of a little bit fruity, apricots maybe, and some brown sugar. It's quite a pleasant nose. That ABV isn't, although there is a prickle, it isn't that harsh. Now let's give it a try on the palate. It's warming, really quite warming. More of those round spices, some cinnamon in there. And then there's, again, that citrus, orangey citrus. Quite a thick, oily mouthfeel. And there's some soft organic tannins in there. More of that floral, dry hay. You know, it's kind of summer's day in a glass. That may just be auto-suggestion because it's baking outside. And I think I'm getting kind of a hint of brine in the background, a little bit salty, a little bit coastal. Now the finish carries through all of that heat, the spices. It's really quite warm, a little bit prickly on the palate. It's medium long, and all of those organic tannins are kind of what's bolstering it, what's coming through. It's the kind of the dry hay, the sawdust, and like the white pith that comes on an orange segment. White pith, Hessian, those kind of fibrous organic tannins. And then as those taper off, it leaves this flat, familiar flavour. So I've been quite enjoying this Clynelish Reserve, this Game of Thrones whiskey, but I've only rated it a 75 out of 100. That's not a bad score, but it's not an amazing score either. There's nothing that excites me about this. There's nothing that makes it stand out or makes it special. That being said, it's pleasant. It's an enjoyable whiskey. It's got a good combination of flavours. It's delivered well. And I think the high ABV maybe has been used to compensate for a lack of age, but it helps to bring those flavours across. I do, however, think there's evidence of caramel colouring. On the nose it comes across as a muscovado sugar, and on the palate it comes across as a flat bitter tone, and in both places it doesn't quite blend with the whiskey. It doesn't fit with what I know Clynelish to be. That kind of taints it, I guess, for me. But let's see how this stacks up against the standard 14-year-old. You know, if you aren't able to find this one, can the 14-year-old fill the gap? Let you have a glimpse of what you might be missing. So obviously this one is an age statement. The whiskey that's gone into this is at least 14 years old. Now it's only bottled at 46%, which is not massively behind the 51%, but it's enough to make a difference. The colour is a bit lighter, a shade 8 or Sauternes. Now bear in mind, I'll be tasting this one straight off the back of the Game of Thrones version. No matter how much palate cleansing you try and do, chances are there'll be some residue and it will prime your palate in a particular way. So yesterday I did it the opposite way around. I drank the 14 first and the Game of Thrones second. Between the two, hopefully I'll be able to get a fairly concise picture. Straight away on the nose, I would say this one comes across more waxy. It's much lighter, fresher, uplifting, but it's got a great body to it. It just presents itself more naturally, I guess. It's very similar in profile, but this one, the orange pith is very prominent, the dry hay tones. There's a little bit of butterscotch, some malt, and like a honeydew melon to it. So on the palate, that waxy note is very evident again. It starts off soft with some subtle fruits, sweetness. Then this resinous woody tone begins to build, and then a wave of heat, a wave of pepper. Not quite as much as the 51% Game of Thrones version, but it's still very evident and I'd say quite rounded, you know, it's not spiky heat. But then as that begins to subside, it mellows out again on honeydew melon, a kind of cereally oaty tone. And again, I'd probably say that it's a little bit more authentic. There's nothing that feels out of place. So the finish kicks through with this warmth, both from the spice and the pepper. Now yesterday, drinking them the other way around, I thought it was a little bit prickly, a little bit too hot. But in comparison, it seems quite mellow. It's very pleasant. And it lingers on that warmth and it stays kind of fuzzy like that sherbet tone. But there's a young wood, a dry wood, kind of sawdust, some green grass, and I think I'm going looking for a caramel tone, but there isn't really one. It's not very evident at all. I think that on the whole, although this one probably is coloured, it doesn't taint the whiskey, or it's not coming across to me as having messed with the flavour profile. So between the two, I'd rather be drinking the 14-year-old. I think this one is a little bit more authentic, a little bit more natural in presentation. This is by no means bad, and if you've got a bottle, it's worth a try for sure. If recent auctions or anything to go off, the value of these has plummeted. So crack it open, have a try of it. But if you can't find this whiskey, this is a great substitute. So cheers for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this whiskey review. If you have, please chuck a like and a comment below. Let me know what you think of this Game of Thrones whiskey, and consider subscribing for more whiskey antics. Cheers.